The National Electrical Code, or NEC, doesn't have a blanket requirement forcing all electric light and power wiring to be installed inside a conduit. However, NEC 300.1 states that wiring methods must be chosen and installed to prevent damage or unsafe conditions during normal use. This is a crucial point. This requirement is often interpreted to mean that conduit is indeed necessary in areas where wiring is likely to experience physical damage. Examples include exposed locations, areas above drywall ceilings, or within block walls. Conduit provides a protective barrier against accidental contact, impacts, and other hazards that could compromise the wiring's integrity. So, while it's not a universal mandate, the need for protection often leads to conduit installation. It is important to also know NEC 334.15, which covers wiring methods for Class 1, Class 2, and Class 3 circuits. Besides, the NEC industry standards play a significant role. It's common practice to install electric light and power wiring in conduit within commercial buildings. This stems from the understanding that conduit offers the best available protection, ensuring a safer and reliable electrical system. It's a proactive measure to minimize risks and maintain system performance. Regarding Class 2 wiring, NEC 725.44 actually allows the use of Class 1 wiring methods, including conduit, for Class 2 conductors. But this doesn't mean Class 2 conductors must always be in conduit. If they are not subject to physical damage, conduit may not be necessary. The NEC doesn't explicitly forbid using THHN wire for Class 2 circuits, assuming the wire has a 600 volts rating and is installed following Class 1 circuit requirements. However, Class 2 cables, like CLX, are specifically engineered for Class 2 applications and might offer benefits like reduced electromagnetic interference. So, to reiterate, the NEC doesn't always demand conduit for electric light and power wiring, but it does mandate protection against physical damage. Conduit is often the preferred method for this protection, especially in commercial buildings. This leads to its widespread use as an industry standard, even when not strictly required by code. Consider a situation where exposed THHN wire is used for a Class 2 circuit in a non-environmental plenum. While the NEC might not explicitly prohibit this, it's generally not considered good practice and might not be approved by the authority having jurisdiction. In such cases, using Class 2 cable or installing the THHN wire and conduit would be a safer, more compliant solution. When deciding whether to use conduit, firstly consider the environment. Is the wiring likely to be exposed to physical damage from impacts, abrasion, or other sources? Secondly, think about compliance. Does the authority having jurisdiction have specific requirements or interpretations regarding conduit use? Thirdly, weigh the costs and benefits. While conduit adds to the initial cost, it can significantly reduce the risk of future repairs and downtime. Fourthly, consider industry standards. What is the common practice for similar installations in your area? Fifthly, remember that using appropriate wiring methods ensures the long-term safety and reliability of the electrical system. When evaluating different wiring methods, firstly, understand the specific requirements for the type of circuit being installed, whether it's a power circuit, lighting circuit, or Class 2 circuit. Secondly, consider the environmental conditions, including temperature, moisture, and exposure to chemicals or other corrosive substances. Thirdly, select wiring methods that are approved for the intended use and environment. Fourthly, ensure that the wiring is properly supported and protected from physical damage. Fifthly, follow all applicable codes and standards, including the NEC and local regulations. When working with electrical installations, firstly, always prioritize safety. To energize circuits before working on them and use appropriate personal protective equipment. Secondly, obtain necessary permits and inspections to ensure compliance with local regulations. Thirdly, use qualified and licensed electricians for all electrical work. Fourthly, thoroughly inspect all wiring and connections to ensure they are properly installed and secure. Fifthly, document all electrical work, including wiring diagrams and equipment specifications. To further clarify the NEC stance on wiring protection, Firstly, consider the specific language in NEC 300.4, which addresses protection against physical damage. Secondly, review the requirements for different wiring methods outlined in Chapter 3 of the NEC. Thirdly, consult with experienced electricians and electrical inspectors to gain insights into local interpretations and best practices. Fourthly, remember that the ultimate goal is to ensure a safe and reliable electrical system that protects people and property. Fifthly, it is important to also know NEC 310.15, which covers ampacity of conductors, and NEC 310.16, which covers temperature ratings. Let's delve deeper into specific scenarios where conduit is typically required or recommended. Firstly, in areas subject to severe physical damage, such as industrial environments or construction sites, conduit provides essential protection for wiring. Secondly, in damp or wet locations, conduit can prevent moisture from entering the wiring system, reducing the risk of corrosion and electrical faults. Thirdly, in hazardous locations, such as areas with flammable gases or vapors, conduit is often required to contain any potential explosions or fires. Fourthly, in underground installations, conduit protects wiring from soil moisture, corrosion, and physical damage from digging or other activities. Fifthly, in high-traffic areas, conduit can prevent damage from vehicles, equipment, or pedestrian traffic. When selecting the appropriate type of conduit, firstly, consider the material. Options include rigid metal conduit, intermediate metal conduit, electrical metallic tubing, flexible metal conduit, and non-metallic conduit. Secondly, choose a conduit material that is suitable for the environment and the type of wiring being installed. Thirdly, ensure that the conduit is properly sized to accommodate the wiring and any necessary fittings. Fourthly, follow all manufacturer's instructions for installation and support. Fifthly, know what is specified in NEC Chapter 9, which covers conduit fill calculations. Now, let's address some common misconceptions about conduit requirements. Firstly, some people believe that conduit is only required for high-voltage wiring. However, the NEC requires protection for all wiring, regardless of voltage, in areas where physical damage is likely. Secondly, some people think that using THHN wire automatically eliminates the need for conduit. While THHN wire is more resistant to moisture and heat than some other types of wire, it still needs protection from physical damage. Thirdly, some people assume that if the wiring is concealed behind walls or ceilings, conduit is not necessary. However, even concealed wiring can be subject to physical damage from nails, screws, or other objects. Fourthly, some people believe that using cable trays eliminates the need for conduit. While cable trays can provide support and organization for wiring, they do not always provide adequate protection from physical damage. Fifthly, know that NEC 314 covers boxes and conduit bodies. When working with Class 2 circuits, firstly, understand the specific requirements for Class 2 wiring outlined in NEC Article 725. Secondly, determine whether the Class 2 conductors are subject to physical damage. Thirdly, if physical damage is likely, consider using Class 2 cable or installing the wiring in conduit. Fourthly, ensure that all Class 2 wiring is properly identified and separated from other wiring systems. Fifthly, follow all manufacturer's instructions for installation and termination. To further clarify the use of THHN wire in Class 2 circuits, firstly, remember that THHN wire is a general-purpose wiring material that can be used in a variety of applications. Secondly, while THHN wire is not specifically designed for Class 2 circuits, it can be used as long as it meets the requirements for Class 1 circuits. Thirdly, consider using Class 2 cable, such as CLX, for Class 2 circuits, as it may offer additional benefits. Fourthly, ensure that the THHN wire is properly sized and rated for the intended application. Fifthly, always follow all applicable codes and standards when installing THHN wire in Class 2 circuits. Let's discuss the implications of installing wiring in a non-environmental plenum. Firstly, a plenum is a space used for environmental air circulation, such as the space above a suspended ceiling. Secondly, the NEC has specific requirements for wiring installed in plenums to prevent the spread of fire and smoke. Thirdly, if wiring is installed in a plenum, it must be plenum rated, meaning it has been tested and approved for use in plenum environments. Fourthly, using non-plenum rated wiring in a plenum can create a fire hazard and may violate local codes. Fifthly, you can review NEC Article 300.22c for wiring in other spaces used for environmental air. When dealing with electrical inspections, firstly, be prepared to answer questions about the wiring methods used, the materials installed, and the overall compliance with the NEC and local codes. Secondly, provide accurate and complete documentation, including wiring diagrams, equipment specifications, and permits. Thirdly, address any deficiencies identified by the inspector promptly and thoroughly. Fourthly, learn from the inspection process and use it as an opportunity to improve your understanding of electrical codes and best practices. Fifthly, you can also review NEC Article 110.3, which talks about examination, identification, installation, and use of equipment. To summarize the key points, firstly, NEC does not explicitly require all electric light and power wiring to be installed in conduit. Secondly, the NEC requires that wiring be protected from physical damage, and conduit is often the best method for providing this protection. Thirdly, industry practice commonly dictates the installation of electric light and power wiring in conduit in commercial buildings. Fourthly, Class 2 conductors can be installed using Class 1 wiring methods, including conduit, but this is not always required. Fifthly, using exposed THHN wire for a Class 2 circuit in a non-environmental plenum is generally not recommended and may not be compliant. Sixthly, when in doubt, consult with experienced electricians, electrical inspectors, and the authority having jurisdiction to ensure a safe and compliant installation. Let's consider some examples of specific situations and how the NEC and industry practice might apply. Firstly, in a retail store, wiring for lighting and power outlets is typically installed in conduit to protect it from damage from customers' carts and merchandise. Secondly, in an office building, wiring for computer networks and telephone systems may be installed in cable trays, but conduit is often used for power circuits and other critical systems. Thirdly, in a hospital, all wiring is typically installed in conduit to minimize the risk of electrical interference and ensure a safe and reliable power supply. Fourthly, in a manufacturing plant, wiring for machinery and equipment is typically installed in conduit to protect it from vibration, chemicals, and other hazards. Fifthly, in a residential building, wiring may be installed using a variety of methods, including conduit, cable trays, and non-metallic sheath cable, depending on the location and the specific requirements. When making decisions about wiring methods, firstly, always prioritize safety and compliance with all applicable codes and standards. Secondly, consider the long-term reliability and maintainability of the electrical system. Thirdly, weigh the costs and benefits of different wiring methods. Fourthly, consult with qualified professionals to ensure that you are making informed decisions. Fifthly, keep up to date with the latest changes to the NEC and other relevant codes and standards. Let's examine the role of underwriters' laboratories, but all in the context of conduit and wiring. Firstly, UL is a nationally recognized testing laboratory that develops safety standards and tests products to ensure they meet those standards. Secondly, UL-listed conduit and wiring products have been tested and certified to meet specific safety requirements, such as resistance to fire, moisture, and physical damage. Thirdly, using UL-listed products can help to ensure compliance with the NEC and local codes. Fourthly, UL provides a directory of listed products that can be used to verify the listing status of specific conduit and wiring materials. Fifthly, knowing that the UL listing of a wire does not necessarily require the use of a raceway. Let's discuss some common mistakes to avoid when installing conduit and wiring. Firstly, overfilling conduit can damage the wires and make it difficult to pull them through. Secondly, using the wrong type of conduit for the application can lead to corrosion, physical damage, and electrical hazards. Thirdly, failing to properly support conduit can cause it to sag or break. Fourthly, not making tight connections can cause loose connections, which can lead to overheating and electrical fires. Fifthly, neglecting to properly ground the electrical system can increase the risk of electric shock. To ensure proper grounding, firstly, understand the importance of grounding for electrical safety. Secondly, use appropriate grounding conductors and connectors. Thirdly, connect all metal enclosures, such as conduit and equipment housings, to the grounding system. Fourthly, test the grounding system to ensure it is functioning properly. Fifthly, always follow the NEC requirements for grounding and bonding. When troubleshooting electrical problems, firstly, start by checking the circuit breaker or fuse. Secondly, use a multimeter to test for voltage and continuity. Thirdly, inspect the wiring for any signs of damage or loose connections. Fourthly, systematically isolate the problem by disconnecting components and testing them individually. Fifthly, when in doubt, consult with a qualified electrician. To further enhance your understanding of electrical wiring and conduit, firstly consider taking courses or workshops on electrical codes and best practices. Secondly, read industry publications and technical articles. Thirdly, attend trade shows and conferences. Fourthly, join professional organizations such as the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers or the International Association of Electrical Inspectors. Fifthly, network with other electricians and electrical professionals. By continuously learning and staying up to date with the latest developments, you can improve your skills, knowledge, and professionalism in the field of electrical work. In conclusion, while the NEC does not mandate conduit for all electrical wiring, it emphasizes the importance of protecting wiring from physical damage. Understanding the NEC industry practices and the specific requirements of each installation is essential for ensuring a safe and compliant electrical system.